You know the drill. More safety meetings, more training sessions, more money spent, and still getting your employees to buy into safety feels like you're pushing a boulder uphill. Frustrating, right? But what if you've been pouring all that energy into the wrong approach? Scientists have discovered that you only need 10% of your people to actually create big changes. And in most workplaces, there's about one supervisor for about every 10 workers. 10%, that's no coincidence. In this video, we'll talk about how your own frontline supervisors could be the key you've been missing to building a stronger safety culture. You'll learn the approach that experts have been writing about for years, and it's a whole lot easier than you think. We just can't seem to get safety buy-in from our team. That's the biggest complaint I hear when speaking with companies. The safety managers are working hard. They're going person to person, trying to get hundreds and hundreds of employees on board with safety. They've tried new initiatives, new posters, new things at meetings. None of it seems to be working. They find themselves repeating the same messages, spending hours conducting toolbox talks, updating safety boards, trying to keep safety top of mind, but still the needle doesn't move. Look, it's not that people don't care about safety. They do. Nobody wants to get hurt or see a coworker get hurt. The problem is how you're going about it. You're spreading yourself too thin, trying to reach hundreds of employees all at once. It's like trying to fill a swimming pool with an eyedropper. You're going to be at it forever. And then every time there is a safety incident, the response is to double down on rules, more training, more meetings, more reminders. But are you really getting to the heart of the problem? Are you using your time and resources in the best way possible? Well, the truth is, you need to work smarter, not harder when it comes to safety. So instead of trying to reach everyone at once, what if you focused your efforts where they make the biggest difference? What if you could get safety buy-in to ripple through the workplace the same way other good work habits spread? Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, was written around some really interesting research from Rensselaer Polytechnic. They discovered that when just 10% of a population held an unshakable belief in something, that belief usually spreads to everyone else. The key here, though, is to have an unshakable belief. When 10% of a population is unshakable in their belief, that conviction spreads and becomes the majority opinion. It's how a minority belief becomes a majority opinion. When 10% of your frontline people hold an unshakable belief about working safely, it can spread to the other 90% of employees. Look, you see this happen in workplaces all the time. When your company brings in a new piece of equipment, a few of the more experienced workers figure out the best way to use it safely, and pretty soon everyone is doing it that way. That's how good practices spread. It starts with a small group who know what they're doing and care about doing it right. And they have deep conviction about doing it right. And it only takes 10%. Now, think about this. Most workplaces have one supervisor for about every 10 workers. That's not by accident. It works because that's about how many people one person can oversee and look out for. So when you're up on a scaffold or working with heavy equipment, that ratio makes sense. It makes sure that supervisors are able to keep an eye on things and step in when needed. Now, look, this 10% rule isn't just some theory. It's something you can put to work. Instead of trying to convince hundreds of employees separately to get behind safety, what if you focused only on the supervisors? These are the people employees see every day. They're the ones who set the example. When a supervisor takes the time to do a proper equipment inspection, their crew notices. When they stop work to address a safety concern, that sends a message. What's really powerful about this approach is that it builds on the relationship that's already been built. A worker automatically looks to their supervisor for advice and guidance. They pay attention to what their supervisor thinks is important. They do what's important to their bosses. And if safety is one of those things that their boss has an unshakable belief about, then safety by default becomes important to the employee. So the key here is to get your supervisors fully on board with safety and leverage their influence with the rest of their teams. In 1962, a groundbreaking book was written. It was called Diffusion of Innovations, and it was authored by Everett Rogers, a professor at the University of New Mexico. That book is as relevant today as it was when it was written. The corporations around the world use the findings in this book to roll out their new products. Apple is one of those who use it. And in the book, it explains why some people line up at the Apple store a day early to get the next new iPhone, while others wait for the reviews to come out, and yet another group waits to see if the market's really buying it, and why others still don't bother and stick with their old flip phones. Yeah, it's all in the book. Professor Rogers shows that you only need about 16% of people to actually get behind something new before it really starts to take off. In a workplace, that first 16%, the innovators and early adopters, they're the ones who help make change stick. I mean, look at how safety practices have evolved in our industry. Take lockouts and tagouts. When supervisors make sure they take the time to do it right, their crews follow their lead. Even under pressure, when deadlines are tight, those supervisors show that safety comes first. Their actions speak louder than any safety poster ever could. Or think about how proper PPE use spreads through a workplace. When the most respected crew leaders are always wearing their safety gear, no shortcuts, no exceptions, other people start doing the same. Maybe it's using face shields during grinding operations, or taking the time to properly check their fall protection when they're working at height. Whatever the safety practice, it catches on when the right people lead by example. Now, this isn't just about following rules. It's about changing how people think about safety. When workers see that their supervisors are taking safety seriously day after day, it changes their perspective. Safety stops being just another company policy and becomes part of how you look out for each other. And really, isn't that what you want with all your safety practices? You want them to become so normal that doing things the safe way is just part of the job, like grabbing your tools or checking your equipment. And the best way to make that happen is by leveraging the already existing influence of supervisors. Let your frontline supervisors do the heavy lifting to get buy-in from their teams. You know, having technical expertise isn't enough to lead a safe team. A supervisor needs to know how to communicate, build trust, and inspire the members of the team to work safely. It's more than just knowing the rules. It's about knowing how to get people to believe in them. I mean, think about the best supervisor you've ever worked with. They probably had more than just experience at the job. They probably also knew how to explain things in a way that made sense to you. When they pointed out a safety concern, they probably did it in a way that made you want to do better, not just to follow orders. They built respect by their actions, not by their authority. You know, too many times companies promote their most skilled employee to supervisor, thinking that that technical expertise will automatically transfer into being a great leader. But to lead a team, you need a different set of skills than being an expert welder, or electrician, or operator. Look, a great welder might know everything about ventilation and hot work permits, but do they have the communication and coaching skills to transfer that knowledge to a new worker? Good safety leaders know when to be firm, when to be flexible. They understand that every worker is different and they'll need different approaches. They know how to handle the tough conversations about safety without making people feel defensive or resentful. When a supervisor notices someone not using proper lockout procedures, they don't just yell across the shop floor. They take the time to have a conversation. They plan what they want to have happen as a result of the conversation. They might even share a story about a close call they witnessed, or explain how the right way of doing it stopped an accident from happening in the past. They make their conversations personal and relevant. So let's talk about something that really changes how people approach safety: the care factor. When employees believe their supervisor genuinely cares about their well-being, everything changes. It's not just about following rules anymore. It becomes about looking out for each other. Think about working at height. When a supervisor takes the time to check everyone's fall protection gear personally, that shows care. When they stop a job because something doesn't look right, even if it means missing a deadline, that shows care. These are the care moments that speak volumes. And workers can tell the difference between a supervisor who's just going through the motions and one who really does care about their safety. It shows up in small ways, like following up on a safety concern that was raised in a meeting, or making sure everyone has the right tools for the job before it starts. But showing that they care isn't just about being nice, it's about being consistent and following through. It's about making tough calls when safety's on the line, when a supervisor has to choose between pushing to finish a job and taking the time to do it safely. The decision they make shows what they really value. The care factor creates this ripple effect. When supervisors show genuine concern for the safety of their teams, the members of that team start looking out for each other more. They're more likely to speak up when they see something unsafe. They're more willing to take the time to do things right. Employees will care about their safety when they know how much their supervisor cares about their safety. Just because someone was made a supervisor doesn't mean they automatically get the trust of employees. Trust isn't automatic by title. It's earned by a supervisor's consistent actions. Every decision a supervisor makes either builds or erodes trust with their team. This is so true when it comes to safety, because employees watch what their supervisors do more than they listen to what they say. A supervisor can talk about safety all day long, but if they take shortcuts when the production is behind, that's what the team remembers. If they ignore near misses or brush off safety concerns, that speaks louder than any safety meeting. And on the flip side, when supervisors never miss in their commitment to safety, trust actually grows. Maybe it's stopping work to fix a machine guard or taking the time to properly train a new person on equipment. These are the things that show the team members that their supervisor has their back when it comes to safety. Sometimes protecting their team means standing up to production pressure from above. It means being willing to say, look, we need to do this safely, even if it takes longer. When supervisors make these tough calls, it strengthens their team's trust in them. Building trust also means admitting when you don't know something and being willing to learn. Good supervisors aren't afraid to say, hey, let's figure this out together when they don't know the answer. Honesty and transparency build stronger relationships with teams. So this is where supervisor training really pays off. It's not enough to just tell supervisors they need to be safety leaders. You need to give them the tools and the skills to do it better. So think about professional athletes. They don't just show up on game day and perform. They practice their skills, they learn strategies, they work with their coaches to improve. Safety leadership works exactly the same way. In programs like our Peoplework Supervisor Academy, supervisors learn practical skills they can use every day. The skills their employees want their supervisors to have. How to have tough conversations about safety without creating conflict. How to recognize good safety practices and reinforce them, knowing when to step in and when to let workers figure things out for themselves. Remember that 10% tipping point we talked about earlier? This is where it really comes into play. When supervisors get the right training and the support, they become more confident with their teams. They aren't afraid or hesitate to step in, show their team the right way to work. They aren't afraid to show how much they value and care about the members of their team. They're way better equipped to be in a position to influence their teams and drive positive safety change. The best safety part? The skills build on each other. As supervisors get better at communicating safety, their teams become more responsive. As they get better at recognizing and addressing safety concerns, their teams become more proactive about safety. When supervisors take the lead in safety, it becomes part of the workplace culture. Safety isn't just the safety person's job. For a supervisor, they openly want to protect their team members. It's not just about following rules anymore. It's about how we do things around here. Think of it like building a house. You need a solid foundation before you can build up. Strong safety leadership at the supervisor level is that foundation. No one has more influence on safety than a supervisor, and that includes safety personnel. Teams with strong, safety-focused supervisors have fewer incidents. Their team members are more likely to speak up about safety concerns. They work together to find safer ways to do things. They just plain look out for each other more. But let's be honest, this kind of change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, commitment, consistent effort, and by focusing on supervisor development, you can make a lot of progress a lot faster than a few members of the safety department trying to get buy-in from the whole company at once. You need one supervisor to get the buy-in of 10 instead of the safety department trying to get the buy-in of hundreds. Supervisors already have influence with their teams that safety departments wish they could have, so leverage that influence to promote safety. Help your supervisors acquire the skills they need to lead, not just their teams, but the safety program as well. So here's the choice. Do you keep trying to train everyone individually, hoping something will stick? Or do you take a smarter approach by developing your strong frontline safety leaders who can influence their teams naturally and effectively? I mean, the research seems pretty clear. When you focus on developing supervisors into those effective safety leaders, you actually create a natural rhythm of change in safety culture. Instead of pushing safety from the top down, you're building it from within and then letting it ripple out. Think about the impact this could have in your workplace. Imagine supervisors who take ownership in communicating safety, teams that take pride in working safely, team members who look out for each other just because that's how things are done. This isn't just about hitting bare minimums of preventing accidents or meeting minimum safety requirements. It's about creating a workplace where people feel valued and respected, where safety isn't just another program, but it's proof that you care about your people. See, when you get this right, you're not just preventing harm, you're actually contributing to your people's well-being, their growth, their sense of purpose. The tools and knowledge are available. The method is proven. The only question is, are you ready to take that first step? Are you ready to transform your supervisors into the safety leaders they can be? Because when you do, everything else falls into place. Better safety performance, stronger teams, and a workplace where everyone knows they matter.